Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a remarkably difficult game to get into. Luckily, there are plenty of useful online resources. You can look up a deck list online, you can buy single individual cards on websites like TCG Player and eBay, both of which lower the barrier to entry if you are informed. But that's not what we want to do. With just 3 copies of the structure deck and $30 every single time I upgrade this deck, I want to set out to do the impossible. Make myself into a good player and make a deck into something remarkable using only sealed product and trading. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Pay to Play. Or Pay to Play Yu-Gi-Oh! I haven't decided. We'll figure it out by like episode 2. Ta-da! Alright, so let's actually go in and open one of these structured decks here. We're only going to open up one. The other 2 I'll open up off camera. You don't need to see it 3 times of the exact same thing. So I do open it from the bottom. Some people do like to save these things, but I completely destroy them, though I will still be, I guess, respectful. So here we go. They did cut down the amount of plastic in the packaging. That's pretty dope. I like that a lot. They did just switch to like a full cardboard thing, which is cool. This is a lot smaller now, which I kind of like too. Here is the play mat. It's very pretty. Like it a lot. And it also got a combo guide and how to like improve it on the back, where it's recommending Typhon, which is an improvement. Dark Hole Dragon can be an improvement. I don't know about Terai. And these 3 are pretty much useless, so that's kind of interesting. Cyberstorm Access, you wouldn't use any of those, and you certainly wouldn't use... Well, actually, you would use Trouble Tactics Thrust, so that's pretty good. Anyway, moving right along. Starting off strong with Big Daddy Bird, Sacred King Garunix. That is one of the more important cards you've got. Same with Fire King High Avatar Kirin. Garunix is kind of your boss monster. Kirin is a more important, like, pivot monster. Pretty great overall. Fire King Avatar Rangbali. Like the way he looks, think it's dope as shit. He's got cool abs, but we'll never use him. Fire King Sanctuary is one of the more important combo pieces. Definitely a 3-of in any build of the deck. If you're cutting it down, you're doing it wrong. Garunix Eternity Hyung of the Fire Kings. Love the name. The artwork is fucking dope. And I think it's just got a really cool effect. You are summoning it on your opponent's turn, which is crazy. It's got a non-targeting field destruction effect, so that's very good. Fire King Skyburn, not a terrible tech option. Like that it is in super rare, because a lot of these are just going to be common. So got a good reflection to it. I might use it in the free or the 30 structure deck build, not the like further builds of the cards, but it's fine. Echelon of the Fire Kings, you will literally never use. This one, I guess, doesn't have a misprint. It's just like, I don't know if you care about kerning. I do. That's like pretty wide, right? That's kind of weird. Whatever. Legendary Fire King Ponix is the most important card in the deck. It is your 1-card starter. I think that no matter when this card came out, it would have made Fire Kings a much more reliable deck, especially with Fire King Sanctuary. But this just makes the deck a lot more reliable. It is the card you're hoping to see in your hand, so if you have anything that can maximize it, like the Sinful Spoils engine, you're going to run that. That's why so many people do. So, like that a lot. Garunix is not great, but wrong very much is, and, in my opinion, looks pretty dope. Fire King Avatar Yaksha looks cool, useless. Kirin might be doing something. We're going to see. Blaster, Dragon Ruler of the Infernos, I am not going to be using, believe it or not. Burner, Dragon Ruler of Sparks, same thing. Coach Captain Bearman, also not. Coach Soldier Wolfbark, maybe. In this like 3 structure deck build, he can actually kind of do something. So I like that. We'll see ultimately what it ends up looking like. Agminizod as a 1-of in this deck isn't terrible because it does destroy 2 fire monsters, which is what you kind of want to happen. Because Fire Kings do really well when they're destroyed. So maybe as like a turn 3 option. I don't love it, but I might do it as a 1-of just now because we could use, honestly, more boss monsters in this build. Infernal Flame Emperor looks cool, in my opinion, but not very helpful. Doggeran, the Mad Flame Kaiju, is dope and a great side deck option, so we're going to set it to the side. Blazing Mars does nothing for us. Bonfire Colossus, I think, is the coolest art of like any fire monster, but it's not doing anything for us. Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys, not doing a ton for us, but I do like it. Royal Firestorm Guards, Not going to use Spirit of Flames. Gives mad like Fantasia vibes, but not going to use it. Fencing Fire Ferret, not so much. Firebrand Hymnist, no thank you. Alpha Master of Beast, super great side deck card, so definitely going to be running that. Droll and Lockbirds, mandatory 3 of in any build. Cannot believe we're getting it like in this deck. That's hype as hell. So absolutely going to be running it. Onslaught of the Fire Kings is kind of useless outside of a going second scenario, but it doesn't, I mean, it just gets a body on board, which is good, but like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it very variable. Maybe if you have something that can destroy it. I guess if you have Kieran in hand, I don't know. It's not great, but we might consider like siding it in for going second. Circle the Fire Kings is pretty decent, especially if you're playing on your opponent's turn. I think it works really well. It's really good as like a second option if your mainline combo gets interrupted. I'll show you later. What's the matter? Rekindling, great card for this. Fire Formation Tinky, great card for this. Excuse me. Dark Hole, OG boss card, love it to death. We're definitely going to be running it, especially in this build. Trade-in's pretty useless. Herald of the Abyss, we'll put in our side deck. Flammable Counter, not really doing anything. Spiritual Fire Art, Kernai, not doing anything. Chain Destruction might be doing something. I'm going to put it to the side for now. Torrential Tribute might be doing something. Whoop. Solemn Judgment, probably going to run in the main build. Infinite Impermanence, absolutely going to be running in the main build. Can't believe we're getting both this and Droll for just like, 3 for 30, that's crazy. Well, 6 for 30, that's insane. So that's awesome. Power Sync Stone, not going to be doing anything for us. Giant Trainer, used to be like a $15 card. Now we're just getting it. That's pretty dope. It's good for going into like a time scenario. If you can turbo out 3 level 8s to go into this to burn your opponent, that can work. Diamond Direwolf, not great, but you don't really have many options for extra deck, so we are going to be running it. Then finally, Heat of the Fire Charmer Ablaze, in my opinion, does nothing for us unless we're playing like Rescue Ace, in which case we can summon something, and I honestly don't know why this is like this does nothing for us, but we got it, and so we're gonna run it. Finally, we've got High Avatar Garunix. It's a pretty fun card. I know a lot of people don't run it. They're going to be after we get the new support coming out way later, but for now, this thing is going to be just a one of in our deck, and then Arvada is dope. Plus, I mean, that artwork is sick. Let's just be honest. And finally, Fire King Island. So Fire King Island is, in my opinion, it's really good, but it's also kind of limiting. It's not great, but anyways, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and build this deck out the way it needs to look, and we're going to come right back to my build. Let's talk a little bit about the eventual build of the deck that I settled on. So for the main deck, we are going to be running 3 copies of Sacred Fire King Garunix. This is our, for all intents and purposes, boss monster of the deck. When he comes out, he's always going to be interrupting our opponent and setting us up for our follow-up plays. To that end, we also have 3 copies of Fire King High Avatar Kieran, who is our pivot point in the deck. It's always good to have him in hand, even better when we are able to destroy him from the field or our hand to special summon out, hopefully, a copy of Fire King Garunix or something else that's equally as important. We're going to run 1 copy of the old Garunix. It's really good for setting up a board wipe on our opponent's turn if we can find a way to destroy him on their turn. It's really useful as a starting point. I like it quite a lot. Next up, we're going to run 2 copies of Fire King Avatar Arvada. It's a really good special summon, but also it's a monster negate that gives us a free destruction, which we need. It comes up quite a lot. Next, we run 1 copy of Fire King Avatar Barong. It is most commonly going to be destroyed by our copy of Fire King Garunix, just to go ahead and give us that free search on our opponent's turn, or our standby turn, depending on when you're able to destroy him. We're going to run 2 copies of Coach Soldier Wolfbark. This is going to be one of the first ones we actually end up cutting, but it's really good to get us into our level 4 Xyz monster. It can get stuff out of the grave as targets for, Arvada or even Kieran, so that could be kind of useful, but ultimately, right now, it's more so just a secondary normal summon that it'll eventually be eliminated. We're going to want to run 1 copy of Fire King Avatar Ring Bali, 1 copy of Fire King Avatar Kirin, and 1 copy of Fire King Avatar Garunix. This is the 3rd Garunix card. Each one of these has some situational uses, but all in all aren't necessarily the best. They do come up on occasion, but eventually we're probably going to lose all 3 of them, but for now, they're kind of fine. The biggest and most important card in our deck is Legendary Fire King Ponix. This is the de facto normal summon in our deck. It is the searcher for all these spells, helps us go ahead and get into some destruction stuff. It recycles itself at your opponent's or your standby turn, and it adds itself back to hand and special summons itself, once again, based on those destructions. This is an incredibly important pivot piece. As we get into more extra deck stuff that we can use, this will be even more helpful as like link material. Finally, to round it out, we're going to run 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. This is our main hand trap interruption we're going to be using on our opponent's turn. This card ultimately, I mean, it's just so good. I can't believe we're getting it as a common. Honestly, I can't believe this card isn't banned in the game. It feels way more oppressive than something like Called by the Grave. This is just an incredible, incredible interruption. So this is our main deck monsters. You'll be seeing all of them very often. They recycle themselves remarkably well, and they're just constantly showing up. So we're going to be very familiar with the effects of each and every one of these guys. Let's go ahead and move on to the spells. So for spells, we're going to run 3 copies of Dark Hole. This is my favorite interruption in the game because, quite frankly, as you're going to see later on, it will win us individual games. People just aren't ready for everything to be destroyed. And while there will be negations and spell negations and things, this is just a great one to go ahead and rip out right at the beginning of our turn if we're going second, or as a follow-up combo if we're going first. It's so useful. And in this deck, honestly, it just helps us get things going more so than it does stop anything that we're doing. So love Dark Hole. Next, we're going to run 2 copies of Rekindling. Rekindling does come up as most of our Fire Kings do have 200 defense. So this helps us get some resources back onto the field, as well as, help us out. We're going to destroy each and every one of them anyway, so we rarely have to worry about them being banished during the end phase. And if we really are, we can always link into our Hitia, our Link monster. Next, we're going to run 3 copies of Circle of the Fire Kings. This is a remarkably useful card. If anything gets targeted on our opponent's turn, we can go ahead and destroy it. Special summon from the grave, which there will almost always be resources in graves, so it ends up being just a remarkably useful pivot card. Like it quite a lot, and once again, it allows us to play a lot more on our opponent's turn, which we're going to be doing a lot of anyways, but this is just, even more resources. It's a great secondary search off of Ponix if you've already got Sanctuary. Next, we're going to run 1 copy of Fire King Skyburn. It is useful to help us kind of board wipe our opponent, but it's only useful really in like a turn 3 context, and it's not really what I play towards. I usually play towards plays or turns 1 and 2 rather than turn 3. So do like it, don't love it, that's just not my style. I'll probably find out that it's broken somehow and I'm just underutilizing it. Next, we're going to play 2 copies of Fire Formation Tinky. This is really good. It helps us get Barong in hand if we need it. It helps us get our Avatar Arvada in hand if we need it. I mean, this is just a really good useful pivot card that's constantly getting us more materials, and more access to more of our monsters is always good. Next, we have 3 copies of Fire King Sanctuary. This is probably the most important card in the deck overall. It helps us give access to Fire King Island, which we're always going to want to have placed on the field. It does go ahead and let us Xyz summon on our opponent's turn, which is crazy important for the Xyz boss monster we have. So all in all, love Fire King Sanctuary. Very, very useful card. Definitely a 3 of, even if you open it up, it sometimes is really useful because it can be a bait for a lot of people to reveal if they have Ash or Droll if you're playing in person, because this doesn't actually add cards to hand, so neither of those cards are really appropriate because it does place on the field. So really good way to bait out kind of your opponent's hand if you use it first. Obviously, you're going to set it off of Legendary King Ponix if you do have him, so great resource right there. Next, we're going to have our last 2 spells, 2 copies of Fire King Island. It is our field spell. It's really useful. Obviously, you're going to add things to hand. It does help you destroy resources on the field, especially turn 1. That can be a little bit difficult, so this card's really useful for that. And ultimately, just the free special summon can also sometimes come into play. I've not had a time where I really needed this secondary effect of Fire King Island, but do like it quite a lot. And then we're going to run 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Absolutely insane they gave it to us as a common. One of the best interruption pieces kind of in the game, as well as for us as a resource. Love it quite a lot. I mean, considering Cyber Strike, I think it was still an ultra. This is crazy that we're getting it as a common just in this deck. Really just gives us, some longevity, and my cat is going insane. let's finish up our quick little tour by looking at the extra deck and the side deck. So for our extra deck, we're going to have 3 copies of Garunix Eternity, 3 copies of Giant Trainer, 3 copies of Diamond Direwolf, and 3 copies of Hita, the Fire Charmer Ablaze. Yes, it is exactly 3 copies of every extra deck monster they give us, because we're only at 12 even now, and quite frankly, we just don't have a lot of options. So we're going to run with everything that we can possibly get and go from there. All right, while my computer is doing its damnedest to break itself, let's go ahead and run through your bread and butter combo here with Fire Kings, at least using the structure deck. So first things first, you're going to need a copy of Ponix. There are a couple ways to get it in your hand. You're going to use it. You're going to go ahead and normal summon Ponix and then activate its effect to grab you a Fire King Sanctuary. Then you're going to go ahead and activate Fire King Sanctuary to place Fire King Island. Fire King Island effect is going to destroy Legendary Fire King Ponix. It's going to go ahead and add Sacred Fire King Garunix to hand because Ponix was destroyed. Let's go ahead and summon that Sacred Fire King Garunix. Garunix's effect is going to let you destroy from your deck. So you're going to go ahead and destroy Fire King Avatar Barong, and then you're done. 2 summons, that's barely any effects. You're easily playing under Nibiru. So you're going to go ahead and move to your opponent's turn. Draw phase, standby phase. You're going to go ahead and activate from your graveyard Chainlink 1 Ponix, Chainlink 2 Barong. Barong's effect is going to go ahead and let you add a Fire King High Avatar Kirin to your hand. You'll then go ahead and add Ponix to hand using Kirin's effect. Now, you're going to go ahead and let your opponent proceed. You will then, during the main phase, as soon as they do whatever they do first, you're going to go ahead and activate High Avatar Kirin, special summoning itself by destroying Legendary Fire King Ponix. You will then, as soon as they special summon something, activate Fire King Sanctuary. You will go ahead and Xyz summon into Garunix Eternity, Hyung of the Fire Kings, and wipe their board. From here, you can go ahead and move on. At the beginning of next turn, Ponix is going to return to hand during the standby phase. So you've got some follow-ups there. Obviously, Garunix can go ahead and destroy spells and traps just by detaching a material. I recommend at first detaching Garunix because you have several ways to destroy, including with Fire King Island. So you can go ahead and activate Fire King Island at this point, destroying this, special summoning out Garunix, and I believe that should get you a free special summon out of your grave through Garunix Eternity. So, several different options. Obviously, you still have your normal summon of Fire King Ponix. When Garunix comes out, he's going to destroy something else from your grave. So, a couple different ways to get into different tech cards from there. There's not really a great place you want to go necessarily, at least in this build. Later on, you'll have a lot more options, but really you're just trying to destroy, beat down your opponent right now. You can do some crazy stuff because obviously you can get your copy of Kirin on board, and if you're lucky, you know, you can get a copy of the original Garunix or an additional Garunix on board. That can help you get into something like Coach King Giant Trainer, which can, of course, burn your opponent for damage. That can do a little bit more. Plus, he's at 2,800, which is not huge, but definitely, you know, an option. But all in all, that's your basic combo, setting you up for turn 3, where you can go. And it's relatively, depending on what you have in hand, easy to do turn 1. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop on to some duels. Unfortunately, this time is going to be all online. Next time, we will be doing some locals recording. I just don't have the time and availability to go to locals. Welcome to the kitchen. Let's do some cooking. So here's our first test hand. We have Avatar Garunix, Droll and Lockbird, great thing to draw into. Kirin is an easy thing to draw into. Garunix, great thing to draw into. And then Arvada. Okay, so we definitely, if we're going first, have a bit of a combo here. Let's think about this. So first things first we can do is we can use our normal summon on Arvada. Now we have a monster negate live on the field. So let's say they want to go ahead and Droll and Lockbird you from here. We can activate Arvada. We can destroy High Avatar Garunix. That will activate its effect for the next standby phase. And that will let Garunix Sacred Fire King be live to go ahead and special summon. From there, we can go ahead and destroy from deck our copy of Barong. Maybe. There we go. Go ahead and destroy our copy of Fire King Avatar Barong. Kieran is also live in our hand. We can use. I don't necessarily know if right this second we need to. And the reason I'm saying that is because next turn we're actually going to have a chance to do some things, but it might not be a terrible idea to go ahead, assuming we've already used Avada's effect, let's go ahead and Fire King Avatar Kieran's effect, destroying Arvada, special summon itself. We're then going to go into Garunic's Eternity, Hyang of the Fire Kings. The reason being is because our board is going to get blown up by the High Avatar Garunic's next turn. So let's go ahead and have that on board. So, standby phase, Garunic's Eternity is going to special summon itself onto the field, destroying every other monster. That is going to send this to the grave. Garunic's Eternity's effect will activate, and so we can summon a couple things. We're going to go ahead and summon Arvada, and we're going to go ahead and summon Garunic's back to the field. That'll allow us to destroy from deck. I did forget we will also have Barong's effect to go ahead and add to hand. We're going to go ahead and add Ponix to hand. So we'll go ahead and add a copy of Ponix, and then through Garunic's effect, we'll go ahead and destroy. Honestly, from here, I don't know. We could destroy another copy of Kieran. Never a terrible idea, just have that live. So anyways, from there, you know, we've got a follow-up. We've got a decent enough board. We have a monster negate. We can destroy Ponix for cost. On that one, go ahead and negate with Arvada. Ponix is coming back to hand. So we're doing pretty well, actually. So I'll admit, there's some things I'm going to miss here and there. But we're going to try together to learn how this deck works. Just missed something in the combo right there that's going to let us play on our opponent's turn quite a good bit, which is always fun. And honestly, it's something they don't usually expect, which is really cool. All right, test hand number 2. We have Infinite Impermanence. Circle the Fire Kings, not great. Another copy of Impermanence. Coach Soldier, Wolfbark, not great. And Fire King Arvada. Okay, we've got something we can do here. Let's think just a little bit. All right. So coming out, obviously, Imperm is useful if we're going second, not so much if we're going first. Can we do anything really? We can normal summon Arvada. That gives us a negate. I guess we could set Circle of the Fire Kings. Keep Wolfbark in hand if we want to bring him out later. I don't think it really does anything for us. Obviously, we have 2 copies of Imperm. Not a great hand to use. We've got Arvada live, so next turn, Arvada's effect to destroy Wolfbark to negate the effect. Then we can go ahead and activate Circle the Fire Kings, destroying Arvada, special summoning out Wolfbark. Arvada's effect will not really do anything. So, I mean, that's it. Not a great hand, I'll be honest, but 2 negates with infinite impermanence, so that's something. Completely forgot about this, but let's go over the side decks. So we do have 3 copies of Doggoran the Mad Flame Kaiju, super important non-targeting removal. I like it quite a good bit. We also have Alpha Master of Beasts. We're running out 1. I don't think we really need more. It doesn't do too much for us, but can be useful on occasion as just like an extender. We've also got True King Agmenizod, same deal. Can be useful to help us kind of extend through some of the other plays, so do like that a lot. Next, we have Onslaught of the Fire Kings. I've talked about this previously, but it really does kind of help maybe in that turn 3 scenario. That's kind of about it. Solemn Judgment, easy 3 of, can be very, very useful. I don't love it because it is a little bit slow, but I know it's super important. So if we're really struggling to just take, to remove something from the field or stop our opponent, this can kind of cover that hole for us. So I like that a lot. Next up, 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Obviously super important. It's non-targeting removal, super easy, and can actually be used to It can be used on our turn in like turn 3, which sounds weird, but it is super helpful in that scenario. It's kind of a mind meld there, or a mind mush there, but I've actually used it a couple times and I like that tech a lot. So if we've got a chance, maybe we're going into more of a grind game type situation, normal summon something, activate its effect on resolution, or on summon torrential tribute. It's just, oh, so good. And finally, chain destruction, another thing we can kind of use on ourselves, which is, once again, wild to say, but all in all, it's actually pretty useful. It's a decent tech, so I like that a lot. So yeah, this is our side deck. Let's go ahead and hop in to our main bread and butter combos. And last, we have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Absolutely insane they're giving to us as a... And last, we're going to run 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Absolutely insane they're giving it to us as a common. I remember Cyber Strike, it was still a super, so just seeing it in common printing is a little bit strange, but I mean, it is absolutely broken. It's an incredible resource for the deck. It really just helps secure up our combos, and I'm a huge fan. Since it is, I guess, technically part of the experience, this is our deck box. We went with red and orange sleeves for everything. We've got some dividers in here. This was a cheap one off Amazon. It is Fireweed. I think it ended up being like 12 bucks. So do like that quite a good bit. I think it just looks good, and it's a great starting point for our deck. Eventually, we will upgrade this as we upgrade our deck. Our first duel of the day is against Magic Salamander. We did win the rock, paper, scissors. We're going in and we open kind of a bad hand. We are able to go ahead and activate Kieran, destroying the old Kieran to go ahead and send Sacred King Garunix to grave, and that's pretty much our inboard. We do have a new Fire King Avatar Kieran in hand, which is useful because it does allow us to have some follow-up on the next turn, but ultimately it's not a lot to move forward on. And then he goes ahead and summons a virtual world monster. We do go ahead and destroy our Kieran, special summon out Garunix, and then go ahead and use Kieran's effect to special summon out the old Kieran, and then use its trigger effect, which I always forget about, to destroy his virtual world monster. Use Garunix's effect to destroy from grave. We do go ahead and destroy the Barong, I believe, to go ahead and set us up for next turn. Which will help us in the standby phase, obviously, to add something to hand. We're going to go ahead and add Ponix when that happens, but he is able to play through it and build somewhat of a decent board, though we do eventually interrupt him next turn. He goes into some synchro stuff that I didn't really know, so I do try and read a little bit, like Coral Dragon I've never seen before. I think it's an older piece, but we go ahead, we wait. He goes through it, goes into YuGiOh, does go ahead and take our copy of the new Kieran, use it to destroy our old Kieran and attack us and get us pretty low in terms of hit points. So we're definitely on the back foot here game 1. But moving into standby phase, we are able to go ahead and add some things to hand thanks to Barong. I think we do go ahead and hard draw Ponix. So we open up with my favorite card, that being Dark Hole, which we activate, destroy everything, triggering High Avatar Kieran from grave to special summon out Garunix, I believe. Then we go ahead, we activate the effect of Kieran to pop 1 on field, triggering Garunix's effect, moving right along, special summoning out, I think it was Arvada. Yep. Then we go ahead and we are able to special summon out Ponix, which moves us right forward, and we are currently in a position where game is just ours at this point. We move forward through our basic bread and butter combo, getting us in. We go into the battle phase, we do 8,000 life points worth of damage, and we just go ahead and win. So moving right along, I don't really know what to swap out against Virtual World because I don't know how Virtual World works. I do flirt with the idea of chain destruction, but I wouldn't know what to destroy, which is the largest issue. I look at Doggeran, look at Solemn Judgment, that looks good to me. Onslaught doesn't do a ton, though we are going second, so it is probably the most useful. So I don't really know what to swap out. I end up choosing Torrential Tribute just to be able to, and then a copy of Onslaught, because I know we're going second, so there probably will be a chance to use it if we hard draw into it, or if we decide to search it off of Ponix, however likely or unlikely that might be. We open up a pretty decent going first hand, and I do see Dark Hole, and that just tells me I'm going to use this at some point, but Moving right along, he's able to go full combo. I have no interruptions in hand. He builds a, I guess, decent board. I don't know if he drew in anything, but we do go ahead and just drop the Dark Hole on him and go ahead and start our combo. And from there, I mean, game is really ours. We can OTK pretty easy, so we go through everything, activate just a ton of effects we don't necessarily need to. I do go into a copy of Garunik's Eternity and then destroy it with Circle of the Fire Kings, which is a fun little play to help special summon out Big Boy Garunik's, and then through the effect of Garunik's Eternity, we're able to summon out a couple more monsters, and that's really just game. For our next game, we go up against the Duelist Without a Name. I do go ahead and choose Paper like always, and we do win the Rock, Paper, Scissors. Paper again goes strong. We choose to go first, obviously. So we open up playing against an On Eyes Pendulum deck, and this is actually kind of interesting. We did have Fire King Sanctuary in hand, which is basically full combo, plus a Fire King monster to destroy with Fire King Island, so we're able to do basically our normal combo going into Garunik's. He opens up, activates his Butler effect, and I quite frankly don't know what to do when. So I go ahead and use both the effects of Kieran and Garunik's to get some extra bodies on board, as well as help us destroy something from deck that might be useful later. I really don't know how On Eyes plays. I liked the idea of destroying Arvada because that is yet another free special summon, and I know that I'm going to have a couple different options as the different effects of Odd Eyes go through, because it's a pendulum deck, which means they are going to special summon. So had some ideas there, saving my copy of Circle of the Fire Kings for later, and I think we're doing just all right. With Circle, I'm able to get Arvada on board, which is really useful. When he special summons, I go into Hyung and blow up the board, which is really useful. I'm actually able to negate the Odd Eyes Persona Dragon by destroying Hyung, so everything goes to the grave, which is really useful. And then the trigger effect of Hyung opens up, which means I can get more bodies on board, which is just, I mean, this deck is just recursive. Our in-board for this turn ends up being better than our in-board for the previous. From here, I mean, he's got one monster on board. I flirt with the idea of just dropping Dark Hole on him, decide against it all, ultimately. I go ahead and destroy Rengbali with Fire King Island. I go ahead and add Garunik's to hand, and from there, I mean, it's just game. Going into siding, I didn't really know what to do. I figured Chain Destruction could be useful because I could do maybe his Odd Eyes Persona, which gets rid of his negation. I know Solemn Judgment can be useful, but ultimately I don't really know what to do here against this deck. So game 2 opens up, we're going second. I don't have the best hand in the world. I just kind of let him do his thing. He gets into a weird in-board, and it's really just hard to play through because he does have Baron, he does have Absolute Dragon and an Ash Blossom in hand, which basically just means I can't really do anything. I do try and push through to the following turn with both my traps. I do have Solid Judgment, and I am able to negate the summon of his Kashtira Ogre, which felt important at the time, but ultimately did nothing for me. I mean, he gets into an Apollosa, plus a Baron, plus an Absolute, and there's just nothing I can do. Going right into game 3, I'm feeling pretty good. I do go ahead and drop Chain Destruction. I mean, it is literally doing nothing for me. I pick up Torrential Tribute. I should have picked up Doggeran, and that's really the biggest problem. Opening up for game 3, I don't have combo in hand, but I also don't necessarily have a bad hand. I have basically 3 negations this turn, and I will be able to do stuff. So I will be able to do a combo on game 3, just not the one I typically would go for. So having Arvada on field is useful, but it does get Kaiju'd, and here's where I make probably the dumbest mistake I ever have. I thought that I could Solemn Judgment the Kaiju to save my copy of Arvada. Fun fact, you can't do that. That's not how it works. So I end up wasting my Solemn Judgment and getting myself nothing in the process. So this is looking rough for us. He's able to go basically full combo. He ends up not getting into a ton, but he does have Absolute Dragon, which I didn't bother to read properly. So I'm not able to get my Barong destroyed, which means I'm sitting out there with basically a useless card this turn. And if he can do anything, he can easily OTK, and he could do something and easily OTK. So I am able to get Garunik's back on, but he uses that Absolute Dragon to negate, and it's just a loss for me. For game 3, my recording messed up, and so I actually missed the beginning, but we're in a pretty interesting state on his turn. We do have Garunik's and Ponix out on the field. I went ahead and destroyed my copy of the old Garunix, which was an interesting play because it basically ensured I had a board wipe coming next turn. So he activates a couple things. He destroys all my monsters with Lightning Storm. That's how we actually got this weird hand on board. We've got a Fire Formation Tinky, and I forget what we have set in this game, but we're at a pretty good place starting out. He only has really used generic spells to begin with, and I have no idea what he's playing. So he goes ahead and scoops, goes into game 2. I have no idea what he's playing. I assumed he might have gone AFK because I think it does technically default by time. I see he is playing Resonators. He pots up Prosperities. I have no real interruption outside of Impermanence, and when I don't necessarily know how a deck works, my strategy is always, let's just imperm the first thing he does, or negate the first option we have. So I end up imperming his copy of Bone Archfiend, which I don't know if that was the right call, but it doesn't really matter because he does go ahead and cross out Designator me. So that imperm didn't matter whatsoever. Regardless, he sets up a pretty impressive board. He's got 3 different of those big synchro monsters, including the big Bestial card. I don't know about Uvaloop, but it does have a lot more defense than I remembered. And this game, I remember I was just playing awful. Do go ahead and start by using a Dark Hole. He is able to negate it, but that does go ahead and burn one of his negations, which isn't terrible. I do consider chaining my copy of Kieran, but it wouldn't really get me anywhere. From here, I'm sitting and I do have a Sanctuary of the Fire Kings in hand, so I do have some options. I'm worried because I don't know necessarily what everything does. I know the Bestial card can negate, which can be a problem. I'm able to get off my copy of Sanctuary and then activate Fire King Island. However, on activation of Island, I do get Ash Blossomed, which is really unfortunate. Luckily, though, I do have Fire King Avatar Kieran in hand, so I'm able to destroy the old Kieran that is on board, which will allow me to send Garunix to grave, which can be useful. I am able to then chain to destruction of Fire King Sanctuary my copy of Circle the Fire Kings, which allows me to destroy the Kieran on board, which means I can freely summon the Garunix and use its pop effect, though pop effect does not go through thanks to the effect of one of the Resonator cards. I don't know which one. So I do go ahead and activate my copy of Garunix, which he chains to destroy my copy of Garunix, and then I consider what to destroy. I do end up destroying Arvada, which allows me to bring Garunix back onto the field, and I can also bring my copy of Kieran back on the field. So while yes, it was unfortunate temporarily to be interrupted like that, I actually get some bodies on board, which allows me to go ahead and Xyz summon into Garunix Hyung. Activating Kyung, I blow up the board, then I detach a material to destroy his back row. From here, I go into the battle phase, and I'm feeling pretty confident. I destroy his Scarred Dragon Archfiend just by punching over it with the extra 500 attack that Kyung gets from destroying a spell or trap. And quite frankly, from here, I'm feeling pretty good. We don't have a ton of resources if this goes into a grind game, but I'm sitting pretty strong. I've got a monster on board. You know, if he destroys it, I've got an option here, and I've got Fire King Island on board too. So I'm feeling pretty good from here, and it takes a turn. Moving right along, this is probably the dumbest Yu-Gi-Oh! I think I've ever played. He does negate the effects of Hyung, which isn't a huge issue because I am able to destroy it with Fire King Island. This allows me to not only add a card to hand, but it's going to activate Hyung's effect in grave. I do go ahead and add, I believe, Ponix to hand. And then I go ahead and use the effect of Hyung to special summon out my copy of Garunix. I'm able to make kind of a middling board. I do use Onslaught of the Fire Kings to destroy his back row, which I thought would be a much bigger, obstacle for him than it ended up being. Garunix is at 3,800. I do go ahead and normal summon Wolfbark, and from here I'm feeling pretty confident, except I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player and I can't read, so I do maybe the dumbest play I've ever done, which is attack a defensive monster thinking I was using its attack stat. So that doesn't go through. Nothing ends up happening. He's able to keep Uvaloop on board. I try to activate the effect of Ponix later on. Nothing happens there. He's able to get Vision Resonator out onto the field, and from there he's able to snowball into another copy of Red Zone in his hand, a copy of Uvaloop, and this just keeps going. I do activate on the draw phase my copy of Circle the Fire Kings to try and get some momentum going my way. I'm able to get Kieran back on board. I'm able to activate Fire King Island, destroying Arvada, and from here I'm pretty sure I have game, and go through, I definitely do. There is some weird stuff with chaining. I think I could have probably made like a chain link 4, which is crazy for a structure deck, but end up going in and it's so much on board that eventually I believe he just surrenders, and that's game.
So let's talk next steps. Obviously, one of the biggest things for week 2 is Ash. Ashing the normal summon of Onyx really just stops us cold. We have no more combos after that unless we draw into something lucky. Droll can also stop us. That's a big thing. Really, those two are probably the biggest two. Obviously, Imperm can, but I'm not too worried about it because there's not much we can do against it right now. So in terms of what to address, 1, we need a copy of Called By. That is, number 1, the primary target we need to go for. 2, we need some extra deck support. Right now, we've got, 3 of our 4 we're almost never going into. Maybe when it comes to a situation where we're in time, Giant Trainer could be useful, but this deck doesn't really go to time very often. So I don't know how often that's going to happen. Diamond Dire Wolf and Hita don't really get us much right now. So anything extra deck support, that would be great. That's why I think our next target is going to be the Rarity Collection. 1, it's a fantastic set. 2, it solves the 2 major issues we're currently facing. So if we can get Dingirsu, if we can get Avramax, if we can get Called By, and then some other stuff like Pot of Prosperity obviously is going to be really useful. The Biru would be fantastic. All that would be just an amazing inclusion, especially Ash Blossom. Would just make the deck infinitely better. It's a fire type, so we can use it to destroy. Oh my gosh, Ash Blossom would be such a good inclusion. So if we can do that, I think we're looking pretty good. We shall see. I'll catch you all next time. We're going to do that before hopping completely into the Age of Overlord Spiral.